This is Operational Watches. It's going to be our second episode. Today we're going to be talking about the Seiko Sport 5 or the SRPD93. It's going to be on the right here versus our Seiko Turtle, or in other words the SRPA21 / SRPE99. The real purpose of this video is to discuss some of the similarities, some of the differences between these two models. The Seiko Sport 5 is on the newer end, while the Turtle's been around for some time now. We'll be getting into the price, the water rating, the bezel, the crystals between the two models, the case materials, the calibers, the power reserves, and hopefully a good wrap-up to give you a good decision-making process for what you might be looking for out of an entry-level sport and or dive watch with a good rating capability. Alright guys, so first up we're going to be discussing the price between these two models. So on the right we've got the Seiko Sport 5, and while MSRP is $295 on the Seiko website, I picked this bad boy up at Costco for $180. That's before taxes obviously, but I got lucky. Today I checked, it's not on the website anymore, so for you guys that are looking for it through there, I think you might be out of luck until they restock. But as far as the Turtle goes, this is where it gets a little bit more interesting. For the Turtle, I actually picked this model up on eBay. It was a floor model, and I think I paid $275 for it. So that's where it gets a little interesting, because on the Seiko website this is a special edition limited model, and it's kind of a collaboration through Patty, and it goes for $550 on the on the Seiko website. So it's a little bit interesting because you can find these for about the same MSRP as the Sport 5, because MSRP for the Sport 5 is $295, and you can really find these Turtles for about $10 cheaper than that if you look in the right spots on eBay. With that being said, I think there's a conversation to be had on price. We can wrap that up in the conclusion. However, I know it's a factor for some people. These are very similarly priced models at the end of the day, so we'll move forward from there. Alright, next up is the water rating. The Sport 5 is a 100-meter water rating, and the Turtle has a 200-meter water rating. Two variables that I think might play into this from Seiko's side is on the Sport, we don't have a screw-down crown, and the case back is actually going to be a translucent flavor. So we're going to be able to see that movement pretty well, and it should be a nice presentation if you ever want to take your watch off. But apart from that, you're never really going to see it. However, this stands out as a large difference, at least physically, between the two models. If we go back and we take a look at the Turtle, we just have a traditional case back. However, what is unique is we have a screw down crown in place. So you have to unscrew that. It's going to pop out right there, and that's going to be what gives you some of that good water rating, as opposed to what you might see on the Sport 5. And in this case, there's nothing to really pull out here. You can just wind it and wind it and wind it, and it turns freely without any capture. If you pull it out, that's where you change all the functions, similar to the Turtle. The difference is there's no screw down. One more variable or point that I think deserves mention between the comparison of water rating is going to be this ISO rating that the Turtle carries over the Seiko Sport 5. The Seiko Sport 5 is not ISO rated. It does have a 100-meter rating. However, the Turtle carries an ISO rating for that 200-meter water rating that Seiko is putting out here. And I think that big difference is going to play in, particularly for the use of these two watches. I think that the Turtle, you're going to have a lot more scuba enthusiasts going for this model over the Sport 5. I think the Sport 5 is going to be more of the guys that just stay on the land, perhaps, the guys that really don't care about that extra 100 meters of I guess, water protection into the watch. However, at the end of the day, I think the Turtle is going to present a very superior performance to the Sport 5 in every way, not just from the water rating, but also from the ISO certification. Next, we're going to take a look at the bezels between these two watches. And this is where it's going to get a little bit interesting, because while the bezels look very similar because they're both dive bezels, they're both unidirectional, something that's going to stand out immediately, to me at least, and to the audience perhaps, is going to be the difference between the way they turn. So if we look at this Turtle, it's going to turn, we'll listen to the clicks here. So it turns a little bit loose, and what I found is it's smooth, The precision is sort of sloppy, but it gets the job done. After all, it's a Seiko. We're looking at something that's kind of more entry to moderate end. There's no real complaints there. However, just note it's a little sloppier on the smoothness of the turn. Before we continue on, we'll compare the turns right now. So something that's interesting with the Sport 5 being a newer variation is it actually kind of beats out that Turtle, and I'll show right here why I think that, but I'll go ahead and be quiet and let you listen to the clicks here. So I don't know if you can tell, but from my understanding, these two are a little bit different here. The Seiko Sport 5 is coming in at a lower price, but for some reason Seiko changed something, and on that Seiko Sport 5, that turn on the bezel is just a lot more precise. You're getting less slop. It seems like it's a little bit more audible, and it's not only that, but it's harder to turn. In the Seiko Turtle, I've had some accidental bumps where this bezel just gets rotated a little bit off center. It's not really a big deal, but it happens. And with the Sport 5, I have not yet had that happen, just because it takes a little bit more to turn that. And it's not by much. I'd say it's maybe 30% tension increase, or resistance rather. Apart from that though, I think it's a serious improvement across, and specifically when comparing the Turtle to the Sport. So Seiko doing a really good job there. However, once again, I think this might be a marketing ploy, because we have a newer watch here, doesn't have the same water rating, but there's these slight improvements that really set it apart from the Turtle. The last point that I've noticed between these two watches that I think is important to discuss is going to be the texturing of the bezels. Now, both of these bezels are textured in the same exact way. One is obviously smaller, we'll get into that shortly. However, both of these textures are going to be sort of that same look. So essentially, they're going to be looking that traditional Seiko look, and they're both kind of smooth to the touch. They're not too aggressive. That's kind of one of the issues I've had between these two watches, is your hands start to get a little bit sweaty and slippery, whether it's warm out, whether you're working, and you can really, start to notice those effects pretty quickly. My hands aren't too sweaty right now, but as you can see, I'm already turning, and I'm not really like turning the watch bezel as much as I'd like. This gets even worse on the Sport, as you can see, because you really got to get in there when your hands start to get sweaty to turn this, because if you don't, if you're going too light, nothing's happening. This is better than the Turtle in a lot of ways. However, still, I think this is a texture design issue and not so much a comparison issue, because this hasn't changed between the two models. So it's something to note if you're looking for something super aggressive that you can crank, perhaps comparable to a Sangin, perhaps comparable to an Orient. That's not really what you're going to find with these two watches. You're going to find more of a slick finish on the outside, and I think that could kind of hinder some of the performance, particularly underwater. That's just my take. Before we move on, that's something I think should be considered as far as the bezel movement. Alright, next up we're going to talk about the crystal and the case material and diameter. So the crystal between both of these, none are going to be sapphire crystal. These are both going to be Seiko's mineral crystal, otherwise known as Hardlex. Nothing's going to be changed there. It's pretty standard Seiko. We can move on. That's not going to be really a big point that's going to stand out. What is going to stand out, however, is the size difference. So according to Seiko, the Sport here is going to be a 42.5 millimeter case size. It's just noted to be stainless steel, while the Turtle is going to be bigger at 45 millimeters, and it's also stated to be stainless steel. Unfortunately, I don't know what kind. Seiko doesn't provide that information, but I'm sure you can find it online if you look hard enough. Alright, next up is going to be our final two comparisons before we get to the conclusion here. So the caliber between these two models is actually the same. Now, I'm not sure if that's legitimately true or if that's just a modification point, but they're both 4R36 movements, both automatic from Seiko. So the interesting part about that is that also means that the power reserve is going to be, in theory, identical between these two models. And as Seiko describes it, it is 41 hours between these two models. What that means in, I guess, modern terms against other watches is that it's going to last for a couple days. You're going to really want to make sure you wind these, because my experience has been if you forget to wind them, let's say before you go to bed or when you wake up, if you leave it on a table, sometimes it'll die out on you. I've had kind of strange intermittent use issues with the power reserve here. Nothing crazy. I'm sure it lasts 41 hours. I just think you have to be moving them around a lot more to kind of see that come to fruition. Apart from that though, the takeaway here is these are practically identical on the inside. And that'll lead us right into the conclusion of this short video of that model. Something else that I think should be noted, and I didn't bring it up earlier because I didn't feel that it should serve as its own category, is going to be the watch straps. This watch strap on this Seiko Turtle is just going to come in a stainless steel variety. However, the Seiko Sport 5, it's pretty obvious that I've changed the strap out with an Aries variant strap. I want to talk about how I feel about Aries Co. We'll save that for another episode. But it should be noted that the two straps that came with these, with the Sport 5, are just these kind of rubber straps, and honestly, they're not too impressive. They're great for, I guess, wearing it around a couple times, but I think one of the points I forgot to mention was that you're probably going to want to change out the straps on this Sport 5 because the original ones, they're 22 millimeter. They just feel a little bit underwhelming, if I'm being honest. Alright everybody, we're here at the conclusion, and we're just going to be concluding with some thoughts about this here Seiko Turtle Patty Edition, and we're just going to conclude with some thoughts about this Seiko Sport 5, and we'll try to keep them realistic based on the user audience that might be interested in both these models. So bottom line, we've kind of already set the precedence here. I think the Seiko Sport 5 is more for somebody who's just a casual watch wearer, somebody who's trying to get into this. Perhaps you want to wear a watch at work and you want an automatic movement. I think it presents nicely, and I think the bezel is going to perform a little bit better than that Turtle. I also think it's going to present better in case you want to show it off with that case back, which is going to be that translucent window. I think it's going to present well, and I think for the price point, MSRP is obviously $295, but I think you're going to be able to find these for $180, hopefully. Cross your fingers for Costco to come back with these. As far as the Turtle goes, same thing holds. I think somebody who's going to be using this watch for diving purposes or any sort of more harsh maritime use, I think would probably be benefited, to pursue buying this over the Sport 5, regardless of its presentation, because at the end of the day, you're going for a tool watch feel and you're going for a utilitarian usage out of that model. At the end of the day though, we're here to find out for the money which watch is better. And so with that being said, I think I would choose the Turtle. And the reasoning is the money for the Turtle. I mean, I picked this up as a floor model and it was $275. I think I might have paid a little bit more than that after all said and done. However, $275 versus even the best price of the Sport 5, which would be sitting at about probably $200 after taxes, I think is a pretty good deal. I think you're getting a lot for that $75. I think you're getting double the water rating. You're getting a screw down crown. You're getting something that's bigger, but I think it's going to take a better beating at the end of the day. And if you're not looking for that and you want to save a little bit of money, and diving is not going to be too important to you, then I say go with the Sport 5. Just keep in mind, at the end of the day, you're probably going to want to change out that strap, which whether you go to stainless steel or whether you go to another rubber strap or something more like this Aries here, is going to put you right around that same $275 to $300 price mark that you're already seeing in the Seiko Turtle. So at the end of the day, I think they're really close, and I see what Seiko's trying to do. I see they're trying to advance some slight characteristics of the Sport 5 over the Turtle, because I think that's a natural comparison point, and I think they've done that. I think the bezel's improved, and I think it's giving users some new variables to contend with, particularly for that see-through case back to try out, and I have, and that's kind of my end state is that I still think that that Turtle is going to be superior, but I think wearing this guy around isn't a bad thing. It's definitely a lot smaller, so if you have a smaller wrist, I think you might also gravitate to the Sport 5, because obviously this is going to be a 45 millimeter Turtle over the 42.5 Sport 5, and that's all I got for you guys. You'll have to decide for yourself, but hopefully this watch video serves as an interesting comparison. Hopefully we'll have some follow-on episodes to describe some other Seikos kind of in this entry-level category for all you guys that might be getting into watches shortly. Thanks, appreciate it guys. Operational Watches out.